My child, I am here with you right now, in the quiet, heavy stillness of this very moment. I see you sitting there, carrying a weight so crushing, so utterly exhausting, that it sometimes makes it hard to pull a full, deep breath into your lungs. I know the quiet, lonely hours when the rest of the world is fast asleep, but your eyes remain wide open, staring into the darkness, tracing the familiar shadows on the ceiling. I have been sitting right beside you during those agonizing midnights, when the silence of your house is entirely drowned out by the deafening, relentless roar of your own anxious thoughts. I see the way your chest tightens when the sun begins to set, knowing another day is ending, and the answers you so desperately need have still not arrived. I know about the quiet, silent tears that slip down your face when you are absolutely certain no one else is watching. I have caught every single one of those tears. You have tried so hard to be strong. You have tried to hold everything together for the people you love, to wear a brave, capable face, while your heart feels like it is fracturing under the pressure. You do not have to hide that deep, aching exhaustion from me. I see the raw, unpolished reality of your pain, and I'm not asking you to pretend anymore. I know exactly what is sitting on your kitchen counter right now. I see the stacks of unopened envelopes, the final notices, the bills that make your stomach drop, and your hands tremble just to look at them. I know about the agonizing calculations running constantly in the back of your mind, the endless frantic math of trying to stretch far too little across far too much. I see the quiet panic that grips you when you check your bank account, staring at numbers that simply refuse to add up, no matter how many times you reorganize your budget cut back or sacrifice your own basic needs. You have been living in a relentless, unforgiving state of survival, navigating a violent storm of financial drought that seems to have no end. Every single dollar spent feels like a major crisis. Every unexpected expense, no matter how small, feels like a fatal blow to your fragile, paper-thin peace. I have watched you stand in the aisle of the grocery store, quietly returning items to the shelf because the total was just a few dollars too high. I have felt the sharp, stinging heartache in your chest when you had to look at your family and say, "Not right now," or "Maybe next time," carrying the hidden toxic guilt of a provider who feels like they are fundamentally failing. You are not failing, my beloved child. You are simply carrying a burden that was never designed for human shoulders to bear alone. The sheer, relentless gravity of this daily pressure is enough to break anyone, and I see exactly how deeply it has worn down your spirit. This prolonged, bitter season of lack has done so much more than just empty your wallet. It has slowly, methodically drained the vital reserves of your soul. I see the heavy, suffocating spiritual fatigue that settles over you like a thick winter fog. You are so intensely, deeply tired. It is not a physical tiredness that a few hours of sleep can cure. It is a deep, bone-weary exhaustion that comes from being locked in a state of high alert for months, perhaps even years on end. You have been fighting a relentless battle against an invisible enemy of debt and scarcity, constantly bracing yourself for the next piece of bad news, the next late fee, the next unexpected breakdown. Your nervous system is frayed, constantly coiled, and waiting for the other shoe to drop. I understand how this relentless pounding pressure has made your world feel incredibly small, dangerous, and utterly unforgiving. The natural joy that used to come so easily to you has been completely swallowed up by the urgent, screaming necessity of just making it through the next 24 hours. You have forgotten what it feels like to dream, because dreaming requires a safety net that you feel you do not have. Your vision has been forcefully narrowed to the immediate terrifying present, leaving you feeling trapped in a labyrinth of impossible choices and dead ends. I am not here to rush you out of this vulnerable moment with empty platitudes or hollow comforts. I am not standing on a distant shore, shouting instructions while you feel like you are drowning. I have waded into these dark, freezing waters right beside you. I am sitting with you in this very room, in the midst of the mess, the fear, and the unpaid obligations. Right now, I just want you to feel the absolute, undeniable reality of my presence. You do not need to pray the perfect, eloquent prayer. You do not need to muster up a mountain of unwavering faith. You do not even need to speak a single word. Your silent groans, your heavy sighs, the physical drooping of your weary posture, these are all prayers that reach my throne with perfect crystalline clarity. I am wrapping my arms around your trembling spirit right now. Feel the warmth of my unconditional protective love beginning to seep into the cold, terrified spaces of your mind. I am the God who sees you. You are not a forgotten number in a vast, indifferent universe. You are not a failure slipping through the cracks of society. You are my cherished, beloved child, and the exact details of your financial distress matter deeply and personally to me. I care about the past due notices. I care about the worn-out shoes. I care about the rent that is due. There is no detail of your life too mundane, too messy, or too broken for my compassionate gaze to reach. For so long, you have had to be the strong one. You have built thick, heavy walls of defense around your heart, just to survive the crushing disappointment of unanswered hopes and closed doors. You have put on heavy armor simply to make it through the day, without emotionally collapsing in front of others. But right now, in this quiet, sacred space, between just you and me, I am gently asking you to set down your shield. Let those heavy walls crumble to the floor. It is completely safe to be fragile here in my presence. It is safe to admit that you are completely out of options, completely out of answers, and completely out of strength. When you finally stop fighting to hold up the collapsing sky all by yourself, you create the necessary space for me to step in and carry it for you. Take a slow, deep breath with me right now. Let the air fill your weary lungs, and as you slowly release it, exhale the frantic, buzzing energy of panic that has been vibrating in your veins. Let your tense shoulders drop. Unclench your jaw. Release the tight, desperate grip you have on your fear. I am gently, lovingly dismantling the defensive mechanisms you have relied on for survival, not to leave you vulnerable and exposed, but to completely cover you with my divine, unshakable protection. As you sit here slowly becoming enveloped in my quiet, steady presence, notice how the frantic, terrifying beating of your heart is beginning to slow down into a steady, peaceful rhythm. The chaotic, violent storm of what-ifs and how-wills that has been raging relentlessly in your mind is finally meeting the immovable breakwater of my eternal peace. I am intentionally quieting the loud, demanding voices of your circumstances and silencing the harsh, critical voice of your own internal self-doubt. In their place, I am establishing a warm, illuminated sanctuary of calm deep within your spirit. You are gently transitioning from a state of isolated, frantic, desperate survival into a beautiful state of calm, attentive, restful stillness. You are finally safe enough to simply stop running, stop calculating, and just listen. The ground beneath your feet, which has felt like terrifying, shifting sand for so long, is solidifying into an unbreakable rock under my hand. You are deeply known, entirely loved, and profoundly understood in this very second. I have carefully documented every single moment of your painful struggle, and not 1 second of your brave endurance has gone unnoticed by the courts of heaven. I know the exact depth of the valley you are standing in. But as this physical panic finally begins to subside, and this new quiet stillness takes root in your exhausted heart, another deeper shadow often tries to surface in the silence. It is a quiet, haunting question that has whispered through your mind during those lonely, desperate midnight hours, a terrifying fear that perhaps I have turned my face away from you, leaving you to fight this impossible, lonely battle entirely on your own. I hear that whisper, my child. I feel the cold ache it leaves in the center of your chest. When the bank account dwindles and the cupboard's bare, The isolation becomes a physical weight. You look at the silent sky and wonder if your prayers are simply bouncing off the ceiling, dissolving into the empty air before they ever reach my ears. It is one thing to suffer. It is entirely another to believe you are suffering, completely unobserved, forgotten by the very Creator who promised to hold you. This financial drought has not just starved your earthly resources. It has tried to starve your foundational belief that you are seen and cherished. The crippling loneliness of severe financial ruin is a uniquely quiet, agonizing burden. You cannot easily share it. You cannot openly speak of it at church or bring it up casually over dinner with friends, because the heavy, suffocating shame of lack silences you. You smile and nod, wearing a mask of polite survival, while inside, you are drowning in a sea of red ink and final notices. And in that heavy, isolating silence, the enemy of your soul has found a fertile playground for his most vicious, devastating lies. He comes to you when you are most vulnerable and entirely exhausted. He sits in the empty chair beside you during those terrifying midnight hours and whispers that your current hardship is a direct result of your past mistakes. He tells you that this suffocating poverty is a punishment, a divine reprimand for the times you fell short, made the wrong financial choice, or simply failed to measure up to an impossible standard. He points a condemning finger at your empty hands, at the unpaid bills stacked on the counter, and tries to convince you that I have turned my back on you in disappointment. He wants you to believe that my love is transactional, that because your bank account is empty, your spiritual worth must also be bankrupt. I want to speak directly, firmly, and unequivocally to that lie right now. I am not a vindictive taskmaster weighing your daily worth against your earthly bank balance. Your struggles are not a punitive sentence handed down from a distant, angry father. My love for you is not measured in immediate financial ease, nor is my presence ever withdrawn the moment you stumble or face an insurmountable mountain. The enemy also twists the knife by drawing your weary eyes to the seemingly effortless lives of those around you. You scroll through your phone, or you drive through your neighborhood, and everywhere you look, someone else is celebrating a massive breakthrough. Someone else is buying a new home, taking a joyous family vacation, or standing on a stage testifying about a miraculous sudden financial provision. And you sit there in the shadows, trying to be happy for them, yet feeling a sharp, quiet fracture in your own spirit. The enemy leans in close and whispers, "Why them, and not you?" He blesses everyone else, but he has overlooked you. You have been left behind in the waiting room, while the rest of the world moves forward into the light. I know exactly how deeply that specific lie stings. I know the profound spiritual fatigue that settles into your very bones when you have faithfully praised me for the miracles of others while desperately hiding your own bleeding heart. Hear me now. You are not overlooked. You are not the forgotten child left standing at the back of the line while the treasury of heaven is emptied for everyone else. It is exhausting to keep standing when the ground beneath your feet feels like it is constantly giving way. I see the sheer, overwhelming spiritual fatigue you carry inside your chest. Waiting for a change that never seems to arrive requires a monumental daily expenditure of faith. And right now, your faith feels like a fragile, flickering candle exposed in the middle of a violent hurricane. You have prayed the same desperate prayer so many times that the words themselves have lost their meaning, becoming nothing more than a hollow, rhythmic plea for basic survival. You have read the scriptures about my provision. You know the verses by heart. Yet the terrifying, cold reality of your bank statements makes those ancient promises feel like beautiful, but entirely unattainable fiction. This profound weariness is not a sign of your spiritual failure. It does not mean you lack faith or devotion. It is the natural, completely understandable human response to carrying an unnatural amount of stress for an extended, grueling period of time. I do not look at your exhausted, doubting heart with anger or frustration. I look at you with the deepest, most tender, overwhelming compassion. I know exactly what it cost you just to wake up, place your feet on the floor, and face another day of absolute uncertainty. But we must gently address the silence, the long, agonizing stretches of time where you cried out, and the circumstances did not instantly change. Your human mind naturally interprets my silence as my total absence. When the money did not miraculously appear, when the eviction notice arrived anyway, when the job offer was suddenly retracted, you logically assumed I had left the room. My child, you must understand a profound truth about my nature. My silence is never, ever abandonment. During those darkest days, when you felt like you were completely falling apart, when the panic attacks stole your breath, and the grief of your situation forced you to your knees, it was my unseen, loving hand that was holding the shattered pieces of your mind and spirit together. You look back at the past few months or the past few years, and you genuinely wonder how you even survived. You wonder how you kept breathing, how you kept walking forward, how you kept providing for your family when the external pressure was severe enough to crush solid stone. That survival was not a testament to your own rugged endurance. It was the undeniable, miraculous evidence of my sustaining, invisible presence. I was the quiet strength in your legs when you wanted to collapse on the kitchen floor in total defeat. I was the protective barrier around your mind when the anxiety threatened to drag you into total, unrecoverable despair. I was the sudden, unexplainable sliver of hope that kept you from making a permanent, tragic decision in a moment of temporary, blinding panic. When you sat in your car, gripping the steering wheel until your knuckles turned white, silently weeping, before walking into your house to face your family, I was sitting right beside you in the passenger seat. I did not loudly announce my presence with theatrical thunder or parting clouds, because in those moments, you did not need a spectacle. You needed an anchor. You needed the steady, holding, grounding force of a father who would sit with you in the ashes of your broken plans and absolutely refuse to leave. I have been closer to you in this deep valley of financial shadow than I ever was on the bright mountaintops of your previous successes. You have never, not for one fraction of a second, been alone in this fight. Every single cry you have uttered into the darkness, every whispered plea pushed through clenched teeth, every time you simply groaned because the pain was too heavy and you lacked the words to form a cohesive prayer. I heard it. I heard it the very first time you spoke it. Your prayers did not get lost in transit. They were not ignored because I was attending to more important matters in the universe. The very moment your heart broke, my ear was already inclined to your chest. The delay in your physical circumstances changing was not a delay in my hearing, nor was it a delay in my infinite care for your well-being. I have been actively, purposefully holding you together while the external storm raged around you, ensuring that your spirit would not be entirely swept away before the appointed time of your deliverance arrived. Now in this quiet, sacred stillness we have created together, I am gently building a bridge over the deep, terrifying chasm of your doubt. I am asking you to step out of the dark, suffocating illusion of abandonment and begin to walk across this bridge toward the solid, unbreakable ground of my faithfulness. Look closely at the history of your life. Even in the tightest, most impossible corners, have you not always been sustained? You may have been severely bruised. You may have been painfully delayed. You may have been frightened to the very core of your being, but you have never been destroyed. The ultimate evidence of my faithfulness is written in the simple fact that you are sitting here right now, still breathing, still listening, still holding on by a single fragile thread. I am that thread, my child, and I am entirely unbreakable. I will not snap under the pressure of your current debt, and I will not let you fall into the abyss. As you allow this profound truth to sink deeply into your spirit, the crippling, isolating grip of loneliness is finally beginning to loosen its tight hold on your mind. You are starting to realize that the brutal battle you have been fighting in the dark has actually been witnessed by the Creator of the universe. Yet even as you begin to feel the warm, secure anchor of my presence settling into your heart, I see the heavy calluses on your hands and the frantic, lingering tension still locked in your shoulders. You have spent so much time trying to engineer your own rescue, desperately striving to pull yourself out of this financial ruin through your own sheer force of will, and the weight of that impossible task has nearly broken your back. I have watched you push yourself far beyond the natural limits of human endurance. My child, I see the countless hours you have spent trying to outwork this crisis, taking on extra shifts, piecing together odd jobs, and running yourself ragged until your body physically aches with exhaustion. You have treated your life like a frantic puzzle, moving the same few pieces around the board again and again, desperately hoping that this time they will magically fit together to form a picture of stability. I know about the spiral notebooks filled with crossed-out numbers and revised budgets. I see you sitting at the kitchen table long after everyone else has gone to sleep, the harsh glow of your phone screen illuminating your tired face as you check balances and try to negotiate payment extensions. You have poured every ounce of your energy into engineering a way of escape, relying entirely on your own strength and intellect to build a ladder out of this deep pit. But the sides of this pit are steep, and the ladder you have been trying to construct out of worldly solutions is fundamentally flawed. Every time you think you have secured a foothold, the rung snaps, and you find yourself sliding right back down into the terrifying dark. This relentless cycle of striving and failing is not a reflection of your inadequacy. It is simply the harsh reality of relying solely on the limited resources of this temporary world. You have lived under the crushing delusion that because you are the one facing the debt, you must be the one to single-handedly eradicate it. You have strapped the heavy yoke of complete self-reliance across your own shoulders, believing that if you just worked a little harder, sacrificed a little more, or stressed about it intensely enough, you could somehow force the financial seas to part. But the yoke of the world is unforgiving. It demands everything you have to give, and then immediately demands more, leaving you hollowed out and gasping for air. I see the deep hidden shame you carry when your best, most grueling efforts still fall tragically short. I see the embarrassment that burns in your cheeks when you have had to swallow your pride and ask for a loan, or when a card is declined, despite all your careful planning. You have been fighting a spiritual battle with physical weapons, trying to use earthly math to solve a problem that now requires a heavenly intervention. My beloved child, I am softly but firmly asking you to stop. Just stop. I want you to mentally take the pen out of your cramped, aching hand and lay it down on the table. Stop trying to furiously rewrite the ending of your own story. You have been acting as the author, the director, and the sole financier of your life, and the burden has become entirely too heavy for you to bear. The most profound, life-altering truth you can embrace in this very moment is the beautiful realization that you cannot save yourself. You cannot budget your way out of a miracle. You cannot outwork a divine appointment. Coming to the absolute end of your own strength is not a tragedy. It is the breathtaking beginning of your true rescue. It is only when your hands are finally empty of your own frantic efforts that they are open enough to receive what I have been waiting to give you. I am inviting you into the sacred, quiet space of total, unreserved surrender. Surrender is not waving a white flag in defeat to your creditors. It is the ultimate act of defiant faith. It is looking at the towering mountain of your financial ruin and deliberately choosing to step back, yielding the battlefield entirely to the Creator of the universe. Feel the profound physical difference in your body as you simply imagine letting it all go. I want you to experience a deep, cleansing emotional exhale right now. Breathe out the heavy responsibility of being your own savior. Breathe out the toxic lie that your family's ultimate survival rests entirely on your fragile shoulders. Hand the broken, jagged, unpaid pieces of your life over to me. You have been gripping them so tightly that they are cutting into your own palms, terrified that if you let go, your entire world will completely shatter into dust. But I am the master craftsman. My child, when you place those sharp, fragmented pieces into my hands, They do not fall apart. They are masterfully reassembled into a mosaic of breathtaking redemption. Release the timeline. Release the desperate need to control how and when the provision will arrive. Relinquish your exhausting grip on the steering wheel and allow yourself to be carried. You do not have to have the answers anymore. Your only job in this profound moment of transition is to radically, deeply trust that I am already executing a plan that was set in motion long before you even knew you would need it. As you release the heavy chains of your own striving, your spiritual vision begins to dramatically clear. For months, your eyes have been forcefully trained downward, locked in a terrifying staring contest with the bottom of an empty bank account. You have measured your security by what you can physically see, touch, and tally on a spreadsheet. But human resources are incredibly fragile. They are subject to the unpredictable whims of an economy, the sudden loss of a job, or the unexpected breakdown of a vehicle. As long as your hope is tethered to these temporary worldly solutions, you will always live on the jagged edge of anxiety, forever waiting for the next unavoidable crisis to strike. I am calling you to lift your weary head and look higher. I want to shift your entire focus away from the frightening limitations of your earthly circumstances and point your spirit directly toward the boundless, infinite reality of my heavenly provision. I do not operate within the rigid constraints of a worldly economy. My treasury is not affected by inflation, by market crashes, or by the mathematical impossibilities of your current debt. When you finally comprehend the sheer magnitude of the resources I have at my disposal, the problems that have kept you awake for countless nights begin to shrink into their proper perspective. The massive, intimidating walls of debt that have completely surrounded you, blocking out the sun and making you feel like a trapped prisoner, are nothing more than delicate paper to me. I can tear them down with a single breath. But the reason I am asking you to surrender your own efforts first is because a physical blessing cannot truly rescue a heart that is still utterly convinced it must rely on itself. If I simply handed you the solution while you were still frantically clinging to your own self-reliance, you would immediately return to your old habits of striving, guarding, and living in fear of losing what you just gained. You would just build newer, taller walls of stress around a larger bank account. That is not the freedom I have designed for you. True freedom requires a total, systematic dismantling of your trust in worldly solutions. It requires a heart that knows its true source of wealth. This complete surrender is the necessary threshold you must cross to receive a blessing of this staggering magnitude. You are making a profound internal trade in this very moment. You are trading your exhaustion for my infinite energy. You are trading your desperate, failing calculations for my perfect, unsearchable wisdom. You are trading the heavy, suffocating burden of your survival for the light, joyful yoke of my eternal grace. As you stand here with empty, open hands, no longer trying to force the doors of opportunity open with your own bruised shoulders, you are finally in the perfect posture to receive. You are allowing yourself to be small, and in doing so, you are allowing me to be massive in your life. You are acknowledging that the solution to a crisis this deep must come from a source vastly higher, infinitely wider, and completely outside of your own human capabilities. But before this magnificent, breathtaking provision can be fully poured into your waiting hands, we must first secure the fragile vessel of your heart. I am preparing to shift the very foundations of your earthly reality, but a sudden change, even a profoundly good one, can overwhelm a mind that is still accustomed to living in chaos. Before the heavens open and the tangible physical miracle arrives to completely obliterate your debt, I must first establish something even more critical within you. A profound, unshakable foundation must be laid deep inside your spirit, a protective barrier that will guard your mind against the violent winds of sudden transformation. That protective barrier, my child, is my profound, unshakable peace. I am establishing a foundational spiritual law for this journey we are taking together right now. My perfect peace must firmly, deeply take root in your exhausted heart before the physical miracle is ever placed into your hands. I know the violent storm of anxiety that has been raging relentlessly in your mind for so long. I have watched the dark, turbulent clouds of worry gather, threatening to completely capsize your fragile sense of hope. You have been tossed back and forth by the terrifying waves of final notices, aggressive phone calls, and rapidly approaching deadlines. The sheer noise of this financial crisis has been deafening, drowning out every other sound in your life and keeping your nervous system in a constant, painful state of high alert. But before I calm the chaotic waters that are raging around your fragile life, I must first calm the violent storm that is raging violently within you. I must become your absolute, immovable anchor in the dark. I am gently guiding you to take another long, slow, deliberate breath. Draw the air in deeply, filling those tight, restricted spaces in your chest that have been painfully constricted by chronic daily dread. Hold it for just a moment, and as you release it, I want you to intentionally direct your focus entirely away from your frightening circumstances. Turn your weary eyes away from the menacing calendar on your wall and the stack of unpaid bills sitting ominously on your counter. Those things are exceptionally loud, and they demand your immediate terror, but they are incredibly small compared to my eternal nature. I want you to center your attention exclusively on me. Feel the solid, unyielding strength of my presence, wrapping securely around your trembling shoulders. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the final word of your story. The temporary economy does not dictate my resources, and human deadlines do not intimidate my sovereign timeline. When you anchor your mind to my eternal, unchanging nature, the frantic winds of your temporary crisis begin to lose their terrifying power. You might logically wonder why I do not simply drop the massive financial provision into your lap right this very second to instantly alleviate your suffering. You might think that money is the sole definitive cure for the deep aching panic keeping you awake at night. But I know the delicate, intricate design of your human heart infinitely better than you know it yourself. A sudden, massive influx of wealth without a pre-existing foundation of deep spiritual peace would not truly save you. It would only amplify your internal chaos. If your heart remains wired for anxiety, if your mind is still completely habituated to living in a constant state of frantic survival, then sudden abundance would merely give you a larger, more complicated set of things to worry about losing. You would simply transition from the terror of not having enough to the paralyzing fear of protecting what you have suddenly gained. The toxic, exhausting cycle of stress would continue, just wrapped in a different, more expensive package. Therefore, I am currently performing a breathtaking, vital miracle entirely inside your heart at this exact moment. It is a miracle of deep, unexplainable stillness and divine reassurance. Before I move a single earthly dollar, before the physical breakthrough is revealed, I am completely rewiring your spirit to function from a place of profound rest rather than frantic panic. I am actively replacing the brittle, exhausted framework of your chronic anxiety with the solid, impenetrable steel of my divine comfort. Can you feel it happening deep within your chest? Can you feel the sharp, biting edge of your desperation beginning to dull and soften as my presence continues to wash over you? This internal transformation is not a delay of your blessing. It is the absolute essential prerequisite for it. I am expanding the spiritual capacity of your soul so that when the staggering reality of your new financial season finally arrives, it does not shatter your peace, but simply rests securely upon the sturdy, quiet foundation I'm laying down right now. This is the profound biblical principle of true, enduring inner peace that I want you to grasp. The world has loudly taught you that safety is something you construct with a heavy savings account, a flawless credit score, and an untouchable career. The world insists that if you can just gather enough resources, you can finally build a fortress strong enough to keep the terrifying unpredictability of life at bay. But earthly wealth is a notoriously fragile shelter. My child, it can be easily swept away by a sudden illness, a shift in the market, or a single unexpected catastrophe. I am gently, lovingly dismantling that dangerous illusion in your mind today. I want you to realize deep in your bones that true, unshakable safety is never found in a bank account. True safety is found exclusively, permanently, and entirely within my sheltering embrace. When I am your fortress, the fluctuating amount of money in your possession does not dictate the level of peace residing in your soul. When you are securely hidden in the shadow of my wings, you are completely protected from the ultimate devastation of the storm, regardless of how fiercely the winds howl against the fragile windows of your life. I want you to experience a peace that makes absolutely no logical sense, given your current desperate circumstances. I want you to feel a profound, quiet joy welling up inside your chest, even while the bank account is still hovering dangerously close to zero. This is the hallmark of a heart that is truly deeply anchored in the kingdom of heaven. It is a heart that looks directly at the frightening looming wave of a massive financial deadline and refuses to flinch, not because the wave isn't real, but because it knows exactly who commands the ocean. You are learning the beautiful secret of trusting the builder of the boat, rather than fearing the terrifying depth of the raging water beneath you. Feel the heavy, solid iron of this spiritual anchor, dropping down through the turbulent waters of your anxiety, finally catching hold on the immovable bedrock of my love. As it catches, the violent tossing of your mind begins to cease. You are no longer drifting helplessly toward the rocky shores of financial ruin. You are securely tethered to the creator of the universe. When the enemy tries to send a sudden gust of panic to remind you of what is due tomorrow, the anchor holds. When your own mind tries to drag you back into the familiar spiral of calculating the impossible, the anchor holds. This is the divine assurance that I am imparting to you right now, a supernatural stillness that permanently guards your heart against any external threat. As this divine supernatural peace continues to wash over your weary mind, notice how the frantic, suffocating urgency of your situation is beginning to completely dissolve. The loud, demanding ticking of the clock that has tormented your thoughts for weeks is finally mercifully growing quiet. The crushing pressure to figure it all out before morning. The desperate need to manufacture a last-minute miracle with your own exhausted hands. All of it is melting away in the warmth of my absolute sovereignty. You no longer have to outrun the calendar. You no longer have to carry the crushing weight of tomorrow's unknown demands. The heavy, frantic rushing of your spirit is slowing down into a steady, rhythmic, peaceful walk beside me. You are stepping out of the exhausting current of human panic and stepping firmly onto the solid, unmoving rock of my eternal promises. Take one more deep, intentional breath in this sacred, quiet space we have created. Feel the last remaining remnants of your urgent terror leaving your body with the exhale. The storm outside your door may still look dark, but the storm inside your heart has been completely, sovereignly silenced. You have successfully crossed the threshold from frantic desperation into quiet, unwavering trust. In the place of your former panic, I have successfully planted a steady, unshakable confidence. It is a deep, internal knowing that I am fully, completely, and undeniably in control of the impending dawn. The night has been incredibly long, and the darkness has been exceptionally severe. But as this profound stillness permanently anchors your soul, we must look back at the dark hours you have just survived, for that long season of delay was never what it seemed to be. I look back with you at the years spent sitting in that desolate waiting room of life. You watched the doors open for so many others. You sat there entirely exhausted, watching them walk into their financial breakthroughs, and answered prayers while you remained in the same hard chair, holding a worn-out ticket that seemed to have no number. The frustration you felt was real, and the bitter taste of being seemingly passed over is something I intimately understand. You slowly began to view this waiting room as a cruel place of punishment, a forgotten corner where your desperate file had simply been misplaced. Because your physical circumstances did not change when you pleaded for them to. You interpreted the silence of heaven as a sharp, decisive rejection. When the breakthrough did not arrive exactly when your budget calculated it should, your human logic concluded that I had denied your request. I want to completely dismantle that painful misconception right now. A divine delay is absolutely never a divine denial. You have been looking at your prolonged hardship through the lens of a helpless victim trapped in a stagnant holding pattern. But I have not been keeping you in a holding pattern. I have been intentionally cultivating you in a greenhouse. What you felt as suffocating pressure was actually the rich soil of spiritual preparation being packed firmly around your roots. You could not see what was happening beneath the surface. During all those agonizing months of stretching pennies and facing closed doors. While your mind was focused on urgently changing your external finances, I was painstakingly focused on changing your internal character. I was forging a fierce, unbreakable resilience deep within your spirit. If I had answered your prayer for immediate financial rescue, the very first time you asked, you would have been momentarily relieved, but you would have remained spiritually fragile. You would have still been susceptible to the same fears and the same anxieties the moment a new storm appeared on your horizon. This long season of lack was a rigorous masterclass in faith meticulously designed to burn away everything temporary. You must understand a vital truth. A massive blessing carries a staggering weight. I am about to place an extraordinary sum into your waiting hands, a $5 million provision that will instantly and permanently alter the trajectory of your entire family line. That kind of sudden immense wealth is a magnificent gift, but it is also a tremendous responsibility. Without the proper internal foundation, sudden abundance can actually become a highly destructive force, slowly crushing the character of the one who receives it. It can breed arrogance, reckless independence, and a tragic detachment from my sheltering presence. When a heart is not anchored, sudden blessings quickly become terrible burdens. I loved you entirely too much to hand you a $5 million blessing when you only had a fragile $50 spiritual capacity to safely manage it. Therefore, the long delay you endured was not a sign of my anger, but an act of profound, protective love. I used the intense heat of this financial desert to permanently expand the foundational capacity of your heart. Every time you gently said no to a simple luxury, every time you humbly asked a creditor for an extension, and every time you courageously chose to praise me, even while looking into an empty refrigerator, you were laying another solid brick in a massive spiritual foundation. I was digging deep, hollowing out the hidden pride and shallow dependencies in your life. I was ensuring that when this immense wealth finally arrives, it will not sink your ship. This extended season in the waiting room also accomplished a beautiful unseen work of deepening your empathy. Because you have physically tasted the bitter ashes of absolute desperation, your eyes have been permanently opened. You now know exactly what it looks like when someone is silently drowning in the suffocating waters of debt. You immediately recognize the hidden panic in another person's eyes because you have lived with that exact same panic in your own mirror for years. I allowed you to walk through this dark valley so your heart would be irrevocably broken for the exact things that break mine. Your pain was a highly specific divine curriculum. I want you to hear me clearly. Not one single tear you cried during those lonely, sleepless nights was ever wasted. Not one moment of agonizing uncertainty was without a profound, eternal purpose. The cynical world tells you that time spent struggling is a tragic waste of your human potential. But in my kingdom, economy, absolutely nothing is ever wasted. Every moment you spent feeling like a forgotten victim of cruel circumstance was actually a moment I was carefully preparing you for a magnificent royal assignment. You were graduating through a demanding process of purification, so your character could seamlessly handle the staggering reality of what is about to be placed into your daily life. I know the hour has felt incredibly desperate. I know you have looked at the calendar on your wall and felt that I was painfully, hopelessly late to your rescue. The strict deadlines were screaming at you, and the final collection calls were demanding immediate answers you did not have. But I want to weave a profound, unshakable truth into your spirit right now. I am never, ever late. My perfect timing does not operate according to the frantic, panicked ticking of your earthly watch. I am the God who intentionally steps into the fiery furnace at the exact, precise moment it is needed. I often wait until the midnight hour, until all human options have completely evaporated, so that when the mighty rescue comes, you will know, without a shadow of a doubt, that it was my hand alone that delivered you. When you finally step back and look at this agonizing journey through my eternal perspective, the heavy bitterness and exhausting frustration will completely dissolve into tears of gratitude. You will clearly see that the waiting room was actually the delivery room for your greatest spiritual transformation. You have beautifully survived a grueling masterclass in endurance. You stayed faithful even when you absolutely did not understand the plan. Because you stayed, you have been thoroughly, perfectly prepared. You are no longer the fragile, terrified person who first walked into that waiting room all those months and years ago. I am officially shifting your spiritual identity right now in this sacred moment. You must permanently stop seeing yourself as a helpless victim of a broken economy or unfortunate worldly circumstances. You are a chosen, highly favored, meticulously prepared child of the Most High God. The intense testing of your faith has produced a steadfastness within you that cannot be bought with all the gold in the world. You have been refined in the furnace and emerged shining like pure silver. The incredibly long season of preparation is finally drawing to its beautiful, triumphant conclusion. Every prayer you sowed in tears is about to be violently, overwhelmingly reaped in joy. The locked doors of that silent waiting room are finally swinging wide open. The stagnant, oppressive air of endless delay is being swept away by the fresh, invigorating wind of my entirely new season for you. You are standing on the very edge of an unprecedented, life-altering graduation. You're about to step completely out of the tight, restrictive garments of poverty and step fully into a season of breathtaking, unimaginable abundance. The $5 million blessing approaching is not just a cold financial transaction. It is your divine graduation gift. It is a tangible reward for a heart that courageously allowed itself to be broken, molded and beautifully remade by the potter's careful hands. But before you can confidently walk through these newly opened doors and fully grasp the massive blessing that awaits you on the other side, there is one final heavy piece of luggage you must permanently leave behind in this waiting room. The long, brutal season of lack has deeply conditioned your mind to constantly expect the worst, weaving a dark, sticky web of dread across your daily thoughts. If you try to carry that toxic dread across the threshold into your beautifully restored new life, it will inevitably poison the pure waters of your coming abundance. To fully step into the radiant light of what I have prepared for you, we must now directly confront and completely break the dark, terrifying shadows that poverty has left lingering in the quiet corners of your mind. You cannot walk into a $5 million promise while still wearing the heavy, suffocating chains of your past anxieties. I see the way that toxic dread has wrapped itself around your daily routines. My child, it has become such a familiar, overbearing companion in your suffering that you hardly even notice its constant, suffocating grip on your chest anymore. Fear has moved into the quiet, spare rooms of your mind entirely uninvited, and from those shadows, it has brutally tried to dictate every single choice you make. It is the cold, sharp spike of absolute panic that immediately hits your bloodstream the second your phone rings with an unknown number. It is the heavy, sickening sinking in your stomach when you walk to the mailbox, already bracing your weary heart for the brightly colored envelopes that demand money you simply do not possess. This prolonged, bitter poverty has not just emptied your bank accounts. It has systematically conditioned your nervous system to live in a permanent, agonizing state of impending doom. You have been forced to survive in a defensive crouch, your arms constantly raised to shield yourself from the next inevitable blow. You carefully calculate every single penny, terrified that one wrong move, one flat tire, or one unexpected medical bill will completely collapse the fragile house of cards you have been desperately trying to hold together. But you were never created to live in a defensive crouch, forever anticipating disaster. You were created to stand tall, to breathe deeply, and to walk boldly in the magnificent light of my absolute protection. Let us pull these specific, terrifying scenarios out of the dark, hidden corners of your mind and expose them entirely to my brilliant light, right now. I know the exact nightmares that haunt you when you stare at the ceiling in the dead of night. I see the visceral, paralyzing fear of losing the very roof over your head. The terrifying, incredibly vivid image of an eviction notice taped to your front door plays on a relentless loop in your thoughts. The unbearable, humiliating thought of having nowhere safe to go, of packing your entire life into cardboard boxes while the world watches your lowest, most vulnerable moment. I know exactly how that specific suffocating dread tortures your spirit. You have walked through your home, touching the walls silently, pleading for more time, wondering how many more days you can manage to keep the lights on and the water running. That fear of absolute displacement, of failing to secure the most basic human need for shelter, is a crushing weight that has stolen your ability to rest in your own home. It has turned your sanctuary into a ticking clock of anxiety, where every passing month feels like a closing vice. I also see the deep aching fear of failing the people you love most dearly. You look into the innocent, trusting eyes of your family, the ones relying entirely on your strength, and the thought of letting them down cuts you far deeper than any physical wound ever could. You carry the crushing, silent guilt of a provider who feels their hands are tied behind their back. You endure the quiet agony of saying no to simple requests, the unspoken tension at the dinner table, and the overwhelming fear that your financial struggles are permanently scarring the ones you are trying so desperately to protect. And beneath all of this lies another deeply rooted terror, the fear of your own past mistakes. You constantly replay every financial misstep, every poorly timed decision, and every unexpected loss, terrified that you are somehow inherently flawed. The enemy whispers that you are destined to ruin everything you touch. You are even afraid right now in this quiet, sacred moment that if I do bless you with this massive provision, you will somehow mishandle it. Repeat the failures of your past and end up right back in this dark, unforgiving valley. Listen closely to my voice and let this eternal truth resonate through the very marrow of your bones. I have not given you a spirit of fear. I have never authored your panic. I do not speak the language of dread, and I do not use terror to motivate my beloved children. That heavy, suffocating blanket of chronic worry is an illegal intruder in the sacred sanctuary of your mind, and its lease has officially expired today. By the supreme, unmatched authority of my name, I command those dark, tormenting shadows to release their grip and leave you right now. I am breaking the heavy, rusted chains of chronic anxiety that have kept your spirit bound to the dirt. I am replacing that spirit of fear with my divine power, with unconditional love, and with a completely sound, unwavering mind. You do not have to negotiate with the fear of tomorrow anymore. You do not have to entertain the vivid, disastrous scenarios the enemy projects onto the screen of your exhausted imagination. The narrative of your inevitable ruin is a lie, and I am tearing those false pages out of the book of your life. I am actively, profoundly washing away the toxic, lingering residue that years of severe financial drought have left permanently crusted on your soul. This is a deep internal spiritual cleansing. Feel the powerful rushing waters of my presence sweeping through the cluttered corridors of your thoughts. I am forcefully pushing out the painful debris of your past failures, completely silencing the loud, mocking echoes of your deepest insecurities, and permanently neutralizing the venom of your shame. The poverty mindset that has kept your vision restricted to mere survival is being entirely uprooted. Poverty is not just a lack of funds. It is an oppressive spiritual fog that tries to convince you that lack is your eternal destiny. I am burning away that fog with the radiant heat of my truth. You are no longer a slave to the anxiety of lack. You are being completely liberated from the exhausting, daily dread that has aged you beyond your years and stolen the brilliant joy that was meant to characterize your life. As this profound spiritual cleansing washes completely over you, I want you to feel a very real, undeniable physical lightening in your body. Notice how the rigid, painful tension that has been permanently locked in your neck and shoulders for years is finally beginning to melt away like ice in the sun. Feel the painful, familiar knot of dread in your stomach uncoiling, finally releasing its tight, restrictive grip on your breathing. You are literally physically shedding the heavy, suffocating garments of a victim. My divine protection is an impenetrable, towering fortress surrounding your life, and I am establishing it so securely around your mind that the deceitful whispers of the enemy will no longer be able to pierce your profound peace. When the terrifying thought of foreclosure tries to return, it will strike the solid iron wall of my promise and fall completely harmlessly to the ground. When the fear of failing your family tries to paralyze your steps, it will be instantly dissolved by the overwhelming warmth of my sustaining grace. You are completely, utterly safe. Your future is not a dark, terrifying abyss of uncertainty waiting to swallow you whole. It is a beautifully paved road, guarded fiercely by my angels, and illuminated by my unwavering, fierce love. For years, you have been clutching your fears so incredibly tightly, mistakenly believing that if you just worry enough, if you just hold on to the panic, you can somehow maintain a tiny semblance of control over your chaotic circumstances. But your hands are currently curled into tight, white-knuckled defensive fists. A closed, terrified fist absolutely cannot receive a $5 million blessing. A heart that is bracing for impact cannot simultaneously embrace a miracle. A mind consumed by the terrifying ghosts of past mistakes cannot accurately, wisely steward the magnificent reality of an abundant, overflowing future. I am gently, lovingly prying your fingers open right now. I am asking you to intentionally, deliberately drop the heavy, jagged stones of your anxiety. Let them fall to the floor and shatter. Do not try to pick them back up when the silence settles. Your hands must be completely, totally empty of the dread you have been carrying, so that I can fill them to overflowing with the staggering financial provision I have already prepared for you. You are boldly stepping out of the cold, oppressive shadows of scarcity and into the brilliant, unobstructed light of true, lasting freedom. The toxic dread that chronic poverty inevitably leaves behind has been thoroughly washed away, leaving you spiritually clean, emotionally light, and beautifully prepared to receive the promise. As the absolute last, heavy chain of fear falls completely away from your spirit, and your newly emptied hands are finally lifted in total peaceful surrender, you are completely ready to change where you have been looking. Your tired, tear-filled eyes have been fixed downward on the intimidating, towering mountain of your immediate debt for entirely too long. Now that the blinding, paralyzing fear has been completely removed from your vision, it is time for a permanent, breathtaking shift in your spiritual perspective. I am gently placing my hand under your chin right now, lifting your weary head. For years, your gaze has been fixed firmly on the ground at your feet. You have stared at the dry, cracked earth of your bank accounts, scanning the barren valley of your debt, searching frantically for a single drop of water. When you look down for that long, the shadows of the valley become the only reality you know. But I am telling you to look up, my child. I am asking you to elevate your eyes above the jagged peaks of those final notices and past due bills. The terrifying mountains of financial ruin that have completely blocked your view of the horizon are not the highest things in your life. I am higher. My resources are higher. And I am elevating your faith right now, lifting your perspective out of the dirt and into the vast, unending expanse of my kingdom. The heavy, restrictive ceiling you placed over your own life is shattering as you finally look into the limitless sky of my provision. You have been measuring my capabilities with a broken, earthly ruler. You have taken your calculator, added up your meager income, subtracted your overwhelming mounting debts, and looked at the negative number at the bottom of the page, concluding that your situation is entirely impossible. According to the strict, rigid laws of human economics, you are absolutely right. The math simply does not work. The logic loudly dictates your complete failure. But I do not dwell within the suffocating confines of human logic, and my treasury is not subject to the fragile, unpredictable rules of your global economy. You have unintentionally insulted my power by believing that a human banking system could somehow restrict the flow of my provision. A piece of paper with a red number on it does not intimidate the creator of the universe. I want you to completely discard the earthly calculator you have been using to measure your future. Human math requires a starting balance, but heavenly math operates on the miraculous principle of limitless multiplication. I want you to really think about the sheer, breathtaking magnitude of who I am. I am the God who spoke the swirling, burning galaxies into existence with a single quiet breath. I laid the invisible foundations of the earth, poured the vast, deep oceans into their basins, and instructed the morning sun on exactly where to rise. I effortlessly sustain the intricate beating of billions of hearts simultaneously. Yet there is a strange, quiet disconnect in your faith. You easily believe that I can orchestrate the majestic, complex movements of the cosmos, but you deeply struggle to believe that I can orchestrate the payment of your mortgage. You believe I can perform grand historical miracles that part the seas, but you doubt that I am intimately, deeply involved in the mundane, painful reality of your personal finances. I am healing that disconnect in your spirit right now. I care deeply about your light bill. I care about the worn-out tires on your car. I care about the rising cost of groceries that makes your stomach tighten in the checkout line. There is absolutely no area of your daily life too secular or too small for my miraculous intervention. Your current circumstances are nothing more than a temporary shifting backdrop. They do not dictate the final destination of your life when I am actively involved. The enemy has tried relentlessly to convince you that your present financial drought is a permanent, inescapable life sentence. He points to the empty cupboards, the declined cards, and the drained accounts, insisting that because it looks impossible today, it will remain impossible tomorrow. But your future is not written in the dark ink of your current failures or the painful limitations of your present income. When I step into your financial reality, the entire paradigm shifts in a single breathtaking instant. A valley of dry, lifeless bones can become a standing, victorious army with just one word from my mouth. A barren, desolate wasteland can bloom with sudden, overwhelming life. Your financial history does not have the authority to predict your financial future, because I am the author who is writing the very next chapter. Let this profound realization build a new, unshakable confidence deep within your chest. Look back over the grand, sweeping tapestry of my faithfulness. I am the exact same God who provided cool, rushing water from a solid rock when my people were dying of thirst in an unforgiving wilderness. I am the same God who multiplied a meager, insufficient handful of bread and fish to feed a massive, desperate crowd. I did not consult the local economy before I rained fresh manna down from the morning sky. I simply saw the desperate, aching need of my beloved children, and I met it directly from the inexhaustible, overflowing storehouses of heaven. That same ancient, limitless power is flowing directly toward your household right now. I have not changed. My arm has not been shortened, and my treasury has not been depleted by the centuries. The very same provider who miraculously sustained generations before you is actively moving the pieces of your life into perfect alignment for a breakthrough you cannot yet fathom. Do you feel that subtle, beautiful change happening inside your spirit right now? It is the physical, undeniable feeling of heavy, suffocating dread being completely replaced by a genuine, rising excitement. For years, you have woken up every single morning with the soul-exhausting goal of merely surviving until the evening. Your prayers have been desperate, frantic pleas for life preservers just to keep your head from slipping below the freezing water. But as your spiritual vision expands to take in the infinite magnitude of my resources, you are shifting away from a mindset of frantic survival and stepping boldly into a posture of joyful, divine expectation. You are no longer just hoping to miraculously scrape by. You are confidently expecting a breathtaking supernatural intervention. You're beginning to realize that I do not just want to help you frantically tread water. I want to completely lift you out of the ocean, set your feet on solid rock, and fill your hands with an abundance that entirely defies all earthly explanation. This magnificent elevation in your perspective is absolutely necessary, my child. Your mind had to be stretched, pulled, and expanded to hold the impossible. If you had kept your eyes glued to the dust, looking only at the meager, broken resources you could physically gather with your own two tired hands, the sheer size of the $5 million blessing would have completely overwhelmed your ability to comprehend it. You would have tried to fit a heavenly ocean into a tiny, cracked earthly cup. But now your faith has been dramatically, permanently enlarged. You are breathing the rare, invigorating air of true mountaintop belief. You are looking at your debts, not with paralyzing terror, but with the quiet, triumphant smirk of a child whose father owns absolutely everything. You know that the massive, intimidating numbers on those final notices are absolutely nothing compared to the limitless, overflowing grace I am about to pour out upon you. I want you to rest deeply in this elevated place. Let the magnificent reality of my sovereignty completely saturate your thoughts and calm your racing pulse. When the old familiar urge to panic tries to creep back in through a cracked window, simply remind your heart of exactly who is standing beside you. Tell the anxiety that it is speaking to the cherished child of the King, the sole heir to an eternal inheritance that cannot rust, fade, or be diminished by the fluctuations of the world. You are beginning to fully understand that the sudden financial transformation approaching your life is not a stroke of random luck or a fortunate worldly coincidence. It is a deliberate, highly orchestrated move of my hand, carefully designed to demonstrate my overwhelming goodness to you and to everyone who witnesses your miraculous turnaround. The warmth and excitement fluttering in your chest right now is the holy anticipation of a promise that is standing right on the threshold of your front door. You have looked up from the valley, and you have finally seen the vast, unlimited resources of my kingdom. You have accepted that your earthly constraints cannot bind my heavenly power. But this massive provision is not arriving arbitrarily. It is not falling from the sky without a very specific, carefully designed intention. Now that your faith is elevated, your heart is at peace, and your hands are completely empty of fear. You are finally ready to understand the profound why behind the impending miracle. Because this $5 million blessing is not merely meant to erase your past. It carries a deep, sacred assignment for your future. You see, my child, I am not simply handing you this $5 million so you can finally exhale and retreat into a comfortable, isolated fortress of personal security. If the only goal were to erase your immediate earthly debts and provide you with a few years of quiet ease, I could have sent a much smaller temporary provision. But a blessing of this staggering, breathtaking magnitude, a level of wealth that fundamentally alters the financial landscape of your family for multiple generations, is never given merely as a reward for surviving a difficult season. It is not a lottery ticket. It is not a coincidence. And it is certainly not a stroke of random worldly luck. It is a high, holy calling. It is a sacred kingdom assignment wrapped in the physical, tangible form of financial abundance. I am choosing to place this specific massive sum into your hands tonight because I have a magnificent, sweeping purpose for your life that extends far beyond the four walls of your own home and the limits of your personal comfort. I want you to think back to the darkest, most humiliating moments of your financial drought. Think about the grueling days when you had to swallow your pride and quietly ask for help, only to be met with harsh judgment, cold suspicion, or firmly closed doors. Remember the sharp, biting pain in your stomach when you skipped a meal, pretending you were not hungry, just to make absolutely sure your children had enough food on their plates. I know the intense, burning shame you felt standing at the grocery store checkout counter, holding your breath as the cashier swiped your worn debit card, praying silently and frantically that it would not be declined in front of a line of impatient strangers. I allowed you to walk through that scorching, unforgiving desert, and I felt every single ounce of the humiliation that tried to completely crush your weary spirit. But I allowed it, because that exact pain was forging something inside of you that cannot be taught in a comfortable classroom or read in a theological textbook. It was forging a profound, fierce, and unbreakable empathy. If I handed $5 million to someone who had never known the agonizing, suffocating sting of severe poverty, they would likely use it to build much higher fences. They would naturally use the wealth to isolate themselves from the pain of the world, hoarding it to ensure their own untouchable, pristine comfort. A heart that has never been broken by the terrifying reality of lack cannot truly deeply understand the quiet, desperate terror of those who are currently drowning in it. Wealth placed into an untested, unbroken heart often acts as a dangerous magnifying glass, amplifying hidden selfishness, blinding pride, and a false sense of independence. But your heart has been thoroughly, meticulously tested in the fires of adversity. Your heart has been broken, shattered by disappointment, and beautifully, deliberately rebuilt by my own hands. Because you have lived for so long in the dark, suffocating valley of debt, you will never, ever look down on someone who is still trapped there. You will look at them with the exact same compassionate, tear-filled, understanding eyes with which I look at them. Your deep, personal, agonizing history with hardship has uniquely and perfectly qualified you to become a primary trusted conduit of my generosity on this earth. You know exactly what it feels like to need a massive miracle before the sun comes up. And because you intimately know that desperate, breathless, terrifying feeling, you will know exactly how to use this wealth to step into someone else's midnight hour and completely change their entire world. I am not giving you this $5 million so you can simply become a stagnant consumer of my blessings. I am officially establishing you as a joyful, active distributor of my grace. I want to use your hands to quietly, anonymously pay the past due rent for a terrified single mother who is packing her children's boxes in tears. I want to use your restored resources to buy groceries and medication for the elderly widow who is sitting in the cold, trying to decide between buying her heart pills or turning on the winter heat. For years, you have been the one on your knees, weeping into your exhausted hands, begging me for a rescue from the storm. You have been the one crying out for a sudden breakthrough, for a merciful angel, for an answer to a seemingly impossible mathematical equation that threatened to ruin your life. But as this massive provision arrives, you are going to experience the most breathtaking, radical spiritual transition of your entire existence. You are transitioning from being the one desperately crying out for a miracle to becoming the physical, tangible, breathing manifestation of someone else's desperately answered prayer. I am answering your agonizing cry tonight, so that tomorrow you can immediately become the answer to someone else's. That is the profound, beautiful secret of true kingdom wealth. It is never meant to become a stagnant, hidden pool that only serves one family. It is meticulously designed to be a rushing, life-giving river that constantly flows outward, bringing miraculous healing and total restoration to every single dry, barren place it touches. Suddenly, in the brilliant light of this revelation, every agonizing moment of your past takes on a beautiful, redemptive meaning. The years of terrifying struggle, the humiliating rejections, the late nights spent crying over impossible spreadsheets. None of it was a tragic waste of your time, my beloved child. It was the rigorous, absolutely essential training ground for the magnificent mission you are about to step into. If you had not intimately known the suffocating heavy weight of unpayable debt, you would not fully comprehend the sheer explosive weeping joy of walking into a room and completely erasing that exact same weight for another struggling family. I am connecting your past pain directly to your future purpose, weaving them together into a beautiful tapestry of redemption. I am taking the very things the enemy intended to use to permanently destroy your spirit, and I am turning them into the exact, precise tools you will use to dismantle his dark strongholds in the lives of others. You are going to look back at the terrifying valley of your suffering, not with bitter resentment or lingering trauma, but with a profound, humble reverence, realizing that it was the sacred birthplace of your greatest calling. This is exactly why I needed your hands to be completely empty of fear, and your heart to be completely anchored in my unshakable peace. The high assignment of divine stewardship requires a profound, unwavering daily humility. It requires you to wake up every single morning, look at the staggering, unbelievable abundance resting in your bank accounts, and quietly, sincerely whisper, "This is not mine. I am just the trusted manager of the King's vast resources." It is a heavy, beautiful, and joyous responsibility. You will walk through the world with your spiritual eyes wide open, actively looking for the broken, the forgotten, the bruised, and the marginalized. You will listen closely to the subtle, quiet promptings of my spirit, and when I gently nudge your heart toward a specific, desperate need, you will have the absolute financial freedom and the overwhelming capacity to meet it instantly, abundantly, and without a single second thought of your own lack. Can you feel the immense, glorious weight of this holy assignment settling comfortably onto your shoulders right now? It is not the crushing, suffocating, terrifying weight of the worldly debt you carried for so incredibly long. It is the glorious, joyful, life-giving weight of eternal purpose. You are no longer just a weary survivor of a brutal, unforgiving financial crisis. You are a fiercely equipped, highly trained, fully funded ambassador of my limitless generosity. The $5 million that is making its final rapid approach to your life tonight is simply the earthly tool I am placing in your completely surrendered hands to accomplish a massive, heavenly mandate. You are being entrusted with an extraordinary amount of much precisely because I have watched you and seen that you remain fiercely faithful with so very little. You proved that your heart belonged entirely to me, even when your pockets were completely devastatingly empty. That enduring, stubborn faith proves to the courts of heaven that your heart will remain safely anchored to me when your earthly barns are overflowing to the point of bursting. This is the magnificent, awe-inspiring reality of why I specifically chose you out of the crowd. This is the divine redemptive reason behind the long, painful preparation in the dark, silent waiting room. You are finally ready to carry the staggering blessing without ever letting the blessing carry you away from my presence. You have fully embraced the sacred mission, you have accepted the holy responsibility, and you have allowed my eternal perspective to completely override your temporary human fears. You are no longer seeking just a personal rescue. You have fully embraced a kingdom mission. And now that your spirit is fully aligned with my grand purpose, and your newly healed heart is beating in perfect, compassionate rhythm with mine, the grueling season of preparation is officially, permanently closed. The heavy, dark curtain of your long, terrifying night is finally ready to be drawn completely back. I am officially declaring to you right now, in the quiet, sacred sanctuary of this very moment, that your long, exhausting season of painful drought is permanently over. Look closely with the weary eyes of your spirit toward the eastern horizon of your life. My beloved child, do you see it? The first brilliant, breathtaking rays of an entirely new dawn are already beginning to break across the sky, completely fracturing the oppressive darkness that has held you captive for so incredibly long. The brutal, bitter winter that froze your deepest dreams and stripped your branches entirely bare has finally run its agonizing course. The harsh, freezing winds of scarcity and panic have ceased their violent howling. I am speaking a miraculous, radiant spring into existence over your household today. I want you to feel the profound, undeniable truth of my declaration settling deeply and permanently into your bones. The exhausting chapter of your life, defined by desperately scraping pennies together, borrowing from a fearful tomorrow, just to survive today, and weeping silently into your pillow, is permanently, decisively closed. I have personally shut the heavy cover of that agonizing book, and I have sealed it tightly with my own sovereign hand. You will never, ever have to walk through that specific, terrifying valley of lack again. The days of living on the fragile, crumbling edge of absolute ruin are entirely behind you, fading quickly into the shadows as the brilliant, blinding light of my promised tomorrow rapidly approaches. I want you to vividly imagine the profound, earth-shattering relief you're going to feel when you open your tired eyes tomorrow morning. For years, your very first waking thought has been a sharp, painful jolt of pure panic. Before your feet ever touched the floor, your exhausted mind was already sprinting through a terrifying marathon of unpaid bills, looming deadlines, and impossible mathematical equations. But tomorrow morning will be magnificently, beautifully different. Tomorrow you will wake up in a house that is completely saturated with my deep, unshakable peace. The familiar heavy weight of dread that normally crushes your chest before you even pour your first cup of coffee will be entirely miraculously gone. In its place, you will find a light, airy, almost unbelievable sense of absolute security. You will look around your home and realize that the walls are no longer closing in on you. The rent is secured. The mortgage is utterly obliterated. The aggressive, threatening voices of the creditors have been permanently silenced by the overwhelming, triumphant roar of my divine provision. You will take a slow, deep breath, and for the first time in what feels like a lifetime, the air will taste sweet, clear, and completely unburdened. I want you to lean entirely into the absolute, unbreakable certainty of my word right now. When I speak a promise over your life, it is not a fragile wish or a temporary possibility that might be blown off course by the unpredictable shifting winds of the global economy. My word is the foundational, immovable bedrock of reality. It goes forth from my mouth with explosive creative power, and it absolutely never returns to me void. It accomplishes the precise, exact purpose for which I sent it. Long before the foundation of the earth was ever laid, I saw this exact triumphant day on the calendar of your life. I planned this specific, staggering rescue just for you. Everything I have spoken to your weary spirit tonight is backed by the infinite, inexhaustible treasury of heaven. I am the God who cannot lie, who does not change his mind, and who never, ever abandons a work he has begun. Let that eternal foundational truth act as a blazing, unquenchable fire in your chest right now, completely incinerating the last remaining shadows of your doubt. Your human mind may still struggle to comprehend exactly how such a massive, sudden financial transformation is mathematically possible, but I am asking you to look entirely past the fragile limits of human math and stare directly into the beautiful face of my absolute faithfulness. Think about the immense, overwhelming, weeping joy of looking at your family tomorrow. Think about the pure, unfiltered relief of looking deeply into the eyes of your loved ones and knowing with absolute, unwavering certainty that they are forever safe and completely secure. You will never again have to carry the silent, agonizing guilt of telling them you cannot afford what they fundamentally need. You will never again have to lie awake in the dark, plotting how to somehow stretch a single lonely dollar to feed them for another long week. The heavy, invisible chain of generational poverty that has bound your family line, perhaps for decades, is being violently and permanently shattered by the sheer, staggering force of this incoming blessing. I am establishing a brand new, beautifully written legacy for your household, a legacy heavily characterized by breathtaking generosity, profound stability, and overwhelming abundance. You will be the one chosen to rewrite the story of your family, turning a painful history of struggle into a magnificent, shining testimony of my miraculous redemption. You will watch your children, your grandchildren, or those you hold most dear, finally exhale and step out from under the dark, heavy cloud of financial insecurity that has haunted your home for entirely too long. Let the incredible warmth of this coming morning penetrate the deepest, coldest fractures of your exhausted soul. For so very long, the word tomorrow only brought you a profound sense of dreadful anticipation, representing another exhausting mountain you had to climb with bruised feet and completely empty hands. But I am completely, beautifully redeeming the entire concept of tomorrow for you. Tomorrow is no longer your ruthless enemy. Tomorrow is the beautiful, radiant courier, bringing the exact physical answer to your most desperate, tear-soaked prayers. I want you to feel the joyous electric anticipation vibrating in the very air around you right now. The angels themselves are rejoicing over the massive, unprecedented rescue that has been assigned to your life. The entire atmosphere of your room is shifting from a heavy, stagnant holding cell into a wholly electrified launching pad. You are standing on the very brink of the most profound, beautiful paradigm shift of your entire existence. The massive, seemingly immovable stone of your debt has already been rolled away in the spiritual realm, and the brilliant, blinding light of your new reality is pouring completely out from the empty tomb of your financial ruin. I can clearly see the physical shift happening within your spirit right now. My child, I feel the heavy, rusted locks on your heart breaking wide open as you finally bravely allow yourself to truly, deeply believe that this magnificent change is actually happening to you. Allow the blazing, unwavering hope to rise up fiercely in your chest. Do not try to suppress it. Do not try to protect yourself from potential disappointment by holding back your joy. It is completely safe to hope again. It is completely safe to let the rising, powerful tide of excitement wash entirely over your exhausted mind. The sudden lightness you are feeling in your weary limbs, the sudden, unexplainable warmth spreading rapidly through your chest, that is the very real physical manifestation of your faith, rising up to finally meet the staggering reality of my promise. You are deliberately stepping out of the cold shadows of weary reflection and walking firmly into the bright, blinding light of divine expectation. The agonizing days of just trying to barely survive the week are permanently over. The magnificent, life-altering change you have wept for, fasted for, and begged for is no longer a distant, impossible dream, hovering somewhere in the unknown future. It is literally arriving within a matter of hours. Every single day of your past was a slow, painful, exhausting crawl through the thick mud of poverty. But tomorrow is a sudden, glorious, effortless flight. The momentum of this massive miracle is rapidly accelerating with every passing second. The heavenly dispatch has already been completely released on your behalf. The spiritual transaction is already finished, and it is rushing toward your physical daily reality with absolutely unstoppable force. You do not need to take any of the broken, worn-out furniture of your past into this beautiful, expansive new mansion of my provision. Leave the calculators of scarcity completely behind. Leave the defensive, terrified posture of survival in the past where it belongs. You are about to step into an environment of such staggering, overwhelming plenty that you will literally have to learn a completely new way to live, breathe, and operate. The sheer, breathtaking scale of what is breaking over your horizon tomorrow will make the intense struggles of your past look like fleeting, harmless shadows fading in the midday sun. As you sit there, allowing this blazing, joyous fire of hope to completely consume the dry, dead wood of your past anxieties, you must recognize that such an immense sudden shift is requiring a perfect, precise alignment of your heart. You are standing on holy ground, waiting for the physical manifestation of a $5 million miracle to be placed directly into your completely altered life. The long, agonizing night of weeping is truly officially over, and the blinding, radiant joy of your promised morning is rushing rapidly toward you. But a miracle of this breathtaking magnitude, a blessing so extraordinarily large that it shatters every single earthly boundary you have ever known, requires a vessel that is completely, absolutely pure. Your hands are no longer clenched in terror, which is a beautiful, vital beginning. But there is an even deeper, more profound surrender required before you cross the threshold into your new tomorrow. If you carry the hidden toxins of the waiting room into the beautiful palace of your new provision, they will inevitably taint the very magnificent gift I am about to give you. The incredible searching light of this incoming dawn is now exposing the final stubborn shadows hiding in the deepest corners of your spirit. To safely, wisely hold the staggering weight of the abundance arriving in just a few short hours, we must now carefully prepare the inner sanctuary of your heart, ensuring that every trace of resentment and every splinter of human pride has been completely swept away. I see the heavy stones you have quietly gathered and hidden inside the pockets of your soul during this long, brutal journey. Poverty is a harsh, cruel teacher, my child, and it does not simply empty your wallet. It has a profound way of slowly, silently filling your heart with a quiet, burning resentment. When you are trapped in the valley of lack, every interaction can feel like a jagged edge. I know exactly how deeply it wounded you when the people you trusted most suddenly took a step back from your life the moment your resources dried up. I saw the friends who stopped calling conveniently absent when the waters around you began to rise. I felt the sharp, stinging humiliation you endured when family members offered cold, unsolicited lectures on responsibility instead of a warm, helping hand. I watched the way strangers looked at you, the subtle shifts in their posture, the impatient sighs in the checkout line. When you were painstakingly counting out exact change, you absorbed all of those tiny, agonizing rejections, and you built a heavy wall out of them. You used that bitterness as a shield, telling yourself that you did not need anyone, that you would simply endure this crushing isolation entirely on your own. But that very shield is now the final barrier standing between you and the massive provision I am releasing. You cannot walk into a season of unprecedented overflowing abundance while secretly carrying the heavy, rotting baggage of old offenses. I am asking you to look closely at your hands right now. In the spiritual realm, they are clenched tightly into rigid, white-knuckled fists, desperately holding on to the valid pain of how you were treated, judged, and discarded by others. You are gripping the desire for vindication, silently waiting for the day when you can finally prove everyone wrong, when you can take this coming wealth and use it as a glittering weapon to silence every single person who ever doubted your worth. But my beloved child, a closed, resentful fist simply cannot hold a divine blessing. If I place $5 million into hands that are tightly clenched around anger, the blessing will instantly become contaminated. It will be twisted into a tool of pride rather than an instrument of my grace. I did not design this magnificent rescue to be a platform for your revenge. I designed it to be a pure, overflowing fountain of life. To properly align your heart and spirit to receive what is arriving tomorrow, you must actively, intentionally choose to let all of that bitterness go. I am gently instructing you to forgive them. I am not asking you to pretend that their abandonment did not hurt or to say that their harsh judgments were justified. The pain they caused you was incredibly real, and I wept with you when they walked away. But I am asking you to release them entirely from the heavy prison of your resentment, precisely because I am currently releasing you from the heavy prison of your financial debt. You cannot ask me to completely erase the massive ledgers of what you owe to the world, while you stubbornly refuse to erase the ledgers of what the world owes to you. Breathe deeply right now, and as you exhale, intentionally release the names and faces of those who disappointed you in your darkest hour. Whisper a prayer of forgiveness into the quiet of this room. Let them go. By releasing them, you are not validating their actions. You are radically, beautifully freeing your own soul. As that toxic resentment begins to loosen and fall away, we must also address the quiet, deceptive splinter of human pride. The brutal reality of survival often forces you to become fiercely, stubbornly independent. You have had to fight so hard for every single inch of ground that it has become your natural instinct to claim ownership over your survival. A part of you desperately wants to believe that you can earn your way out of this, that your own relentless hustle will eventually be the true savior of your story. But you must completely surrender that exhausting illusion today. This massive incoming blessing is not a paycheck you have earned. It is a profound gift of my unmerited grace. If you allow pride to whisper that you somehow orchestrated this rescue through your own sheer determination, you will eventually begin to worship the provision instead of the provider. I want you to completely lay down the need to take the credit. I want you to humble yourself entirely beneath the mighty, sheltering hand of your Father. A heart that is fiercely proud is a vessel that is already completely full of itself, leaving absolutely no room for my miraculous intervention to reside. I invite you now to adopt a physical and spiritual posture of absolute, unreserved surrender. Wherever you are sitting right now, I want you to literally, physically open your hands. Uncurl your tired fingers. Turn your palms upward so that they are resting gently, completely open, and entirely empty. This simple physical movement is a profound declaration in the spiritual realm. It is a physical manifestation of your willingness to let go of the pain, to release the fear, and to completely drop the heavy armor you have been wearing for years. Open hands are vulnerable, yes, but they are also the only hands capable of catching the staggering overflow of heaven. Feel the cool, quiet air resting against your open palms. That is the feeling of readiness. That is the exact posture of a child who implicitly trusts their father to place only what is good, pure, and life-giving into their grasp. In this beautiful, vulnerable posture of open surrender, I want you to intentionally cultivate a spirit of profound gratitude. Do not wait until the bank account reflects the $5 million to begin your thanksgiving. Gratitude that only responds to the visible evidence is merely observation. True, powerful gratitude that praises me before the dawn breaks is the absolute purest form of faith. I want you to thank me right now in the quiet, lingering shadows of your current valley, for the brilliant light that is rushing toward you. Thank me for the grueling lessons learned in the desert, for the empathy that was forged in your suffering, and for the miraculous rescue that has already been dispatched from the treasury of heaven. When your heart is deeply saturated with this kind of proactive, unwavering gratitude, it becomes incredibly expansive. It stretches wide open, creating a vast, immaculate, clean space within your soul for my abundance to permanently occupy. As you clear away these final remnants of past hurts, offenses, and pride, you are creating a beautifully swept and garnished sanctuary within your own spirit. You can feel it happening in this very moment. A deep, cleansing emotional release is washing over you. The tears that may be gathering in your eyes right now are not the familiar bitter tears of exhaustion, panic, or grief that you have cried for so many long nights. These are sweet, purifying tears of profound relief. They are washing away the last microscopic traces of the victim mentality, the poverty mindset, and the suffocating shame of lack. You are being beautifully, meticulously hollowed out, not to be left empty, but to be transformed into a flawless, expanded vessel, entirely capable of holding a magnificent treasure. You are feeling the incredible lifting sensation of a soul that has finally set down its heavy stones and allowed itself to be washed completely clean. Your heart is now beautifully, perfectly prepared. You have successfully adopted the required posture of receiving. When the staggering reality of the financial miracle finally makes landfall in your life, it will not be met by a chaotic, bitter, or prideful spirit. It will be met by a heart that is remarkably pure, deeply humble, and overflowing with a quiet, reverent awe. You are now fully equipped to steward this immense blessing with perfect love, walking forward with profound wisdom, and maintaining the gentle humility of someone who knows they have been unconditionally rescued. The preparation is complete, the vessel is secure, and the way has been entirely made clear. But before the physical veil is pulled back and the staggering dimensions of this new financial reality are placed firmly into your open hands, there is one final breathtaking encounter waiting for you right here in the quietness of this sacred moment. I am stepping completely out of the invisible margins of your perception right now and filling the very room where you are sitting with the undeniable, overwhelming weight of my glorious presence. For so long you have reached out into the silent darkness, desperately hoping to feel just a faint, fleeting brush of my garment. You have strained your spiritual ears to hear a whisper above the deafening roar of your financial crisis. But in this wholly suspended moment, the silence is breaking, and the veil is being entirely pulled back. I am pouring out a massive rushing wave of my pure, unadulterated love directly over your weary spirit. Feel the very atmosphere around you shifting and growing, thick with my grace. It is a warmth that starts deep within your chest and radiates outward, completely enveloping your trembling shoulders and settling into the very marrow of your bones. This is not a distant theological concept of love. This is a breathtaking, tangible encounter with the Creator of the universe, coming near to hold you exactly where you are. I want you to simply sit perfectly still and allow this magnificent tide to wash over you. Before we ever speak another word about bank accounts, before the physical money is even discussed, I want you to experience the absolute staggering awe of this spiritual fulfillment. Look at what is happening inside your soul right now. The frantic, agonizing hunger that has driven you for years is suddenly completely satisfied, and it has nothing to do with earthly wealth. You are discovering in this profound climax of your journey that I am the true prize. The world's riches are nothing but fragile dust compared to the majestic, life-altering reality of my spirit holding yours in total communion. I am filling the vast, aching voids within your heart that no amount of money could ever possibly touch, proving to you that your deepest, most desperate need was never just financial rescue. It was always me. I am looking directly into your tear-filled eyes. My beloved child and I am speaking words of immense, overflowing pride over your life. You have just walked through a barren, scorching wilderness that would have completely destroyed a lesser faith. You faced a terrifying Goliath of debt lack and systemic worldly pressure, and you faced it while feeling entirely isolated and stripped of your human strength. The enemy threw every weapon of despair he had at your mind, relentlessly trying to convince you to permanently abandon your hope and curse the heavens. But you did not break. You stumbled under the crushing weight, your knees buckled on the sharp rocks of disappointment, and you wept until you had absolutely no tears left to cry. But you never permanently let go of my hand. You held on to my promises in the pitch black of night, trusting my character even when your circumstances violently contradicted my word. You have beautifully, triumphantly passed the test of the wilderness. I want those words to echo through the deepest chambers of your spirit. You passed the test. You proved to the watching courts of heaven that your devotion to me is not a fragile transactional contract contingent on an easy life or a permanently full table. You prove that your love is rooted in something far deeper than temporary comfort. Because you have remained so fiercely persistent in your belief, I am now rewarding that blind faith by turning it into clear, undeniable spiritual sight. You are no longer just believing that I am with you. You are actively, profoundly experiencing my protective embrace in every single fiber of your being. The heavy, blinding scales of exhaustion are falling completely away from your eyes, allowing you to behold the breathtaking reality of my nearness with a clarity you have never known before. As this magnificent wave of my affection continues to completely saturate your mind, I am reaching deep beneath the surface of your conscious thoughts to heal the hidden, agonizing fractures in your soul. The prolonged trauma of severe financial hardship does profound damage that a bank deposit alone cannot cure. Poverty leaves behind deep spiritual bruises, terrible feelings of inadequacy, and quiet festering wounds of shame that cause you to fundamentally doubt your own worth. I am carefully, tenderly binding up every single one of those broken places right now. Feel the gentle, restoring warmth of my hands pressing against the invisible scars of your past failures. I am permanently closing the wounds left by the humiliating rejections, the terrifying eviction notices, and the agonizing moments you felt like a complete failure to the people who depended on you. The lingering ache of chronic disappointment that you thought would be your permanent, inescapable companion is evaporating completely in the brilliant light of my glory. The bitter sting of feeling overlooked and forgotten is being permanently swallowed up in this overwhelming encounter of divine validation. I am making you entirely, beautifully whole from the inside out, knitting your fractured spirit back together with the unbreakable threads of my eternal grace. You are no longer a damaged survivor, limping out of a brutal battlefield. You are a fully restored, deeply cherished heir to the kingdom, standing tall and completely unblemished in my sight. This profound internal healing is the absolute ultimate breakthrough you have actually been craving all along, a complete, total restoration of your soul's communion with your Father. Let the tears of profound joy fall freely down your face now, my child. Do not try to hold them back or wipe them away. These are not the familiar bitter tears of exhaustion, panic, or grief that have stained your pillows for so many agonizing years. These are the beautiful, overflowing, sacred manifestations of absolute spiritual awe. You are weeping because your heart can barely contain the sheer explosive magnitude of what you are feeling in this room. You are experiencing the breathtaking realization that the infinite God, who commands the burning galaxies, who measures the vast oceans in the palm of his hand, and who calls the stars by their names, has stopped everything to intimately, tenderly hold you. You are the absolute center of my affection, and you are finally allowing yourself to fully absorb the staggering weight of that eternal truth. In this wholly electrified atmosphere, the promise of the coming $5 million almost completely fades into the background of your mind. The massive sum of money that consumed your waking thoughts and dictated your deepest fears for years suddenly feels incredibly small and secondary to the majestic, all-consuming reality of just being near me. This is exactly the magnificent spiritual climax I have been carefully, lovingly guiding you toward from the very first moment you entered the wilderness. I wanted you to reach a place where you are so completely satisfied, so overflowing with my sustaining love, that the incoming financial miracle becomes simply a beautiful addition to the main prize of my presence. You have reached that breathtaking summit. Your heart is no longer desperately grasping for a worldly rescue. It is resting peacefully, completely fulfilled in my arms. This profound spiritual breakthrough permanently solidifies your transformation. The heavy, solid iron of your faith has now caught the immovable bedrock of my nature so firmly that absolutely nothing on this earth can ever dislodge it again. Your identity is no longer tied to the fluctuating numbers in your bank account, the struggles of your past, or the intense fears of your future. Your identity is entirely, perfectly anchored in me. You are a towering oak of righteousness, planted securely by the deep rushing waters of my eternal grace, completely unaffected by the temporary droughts of the world. The toxic, frantic need for self-preservation has been totally eclipsed by a deep, resting trust in my sovereign provision. You are completely secure, thoroughly healed, and spiritually radiant. You have discovered the magnificent, liberating truth that having me is having absolutely everything you will ever need for the rest of eternity. You are resting completely in the undeniable, overwhelming assurance that you are fiercely cherished, divinely protected, and fully restored. The vessel of your heart is now perfectly prepared, expanded and cleansed of every earthly fear. And now that your soul is completely satisfied, and your unshakable faith has been brilliantly illuminated by this encounter, your open hands are truly ready to receive the physical manifestation of my promise. The intricate, beautiful internal miracle is finally finished. It is time to turn our eyes toward the horizon and unveil the staggering, life-altering reality of what is about to happen in your natural world. Now that your soul is completely satisfied and your unshakable faith has been brilliantly illuminated by this encounter, your open hands are truly ready to receive the physical manifestation of my promise. Keep your hands gently open. My beloved child, because the profound spiritual reality we have just established in the quiet sanctuary of your heart is now breaking forcefully and beautifully into the physical dimensions of your natural world. The internal preparation is finished, and the agonizing time for waiting has officially expired. I am now pulling back the final heavy curtain that has obscured your vision, allowing you to fully look upon the staggering, life-altering truth of what I have done for you. I am speaking directly to the earthly circumstances that have tormented you for years, commanding them to completely bow to the supreme authority of my kingdom. The invisible heavenly dispatch that I promised you is no longer hovering in the distance. It has officially made landfall in your life. Hear me clearly, and let these specific, definitive words echo through the deepest, most exhausted corridors of your mind. I have officially released the $5 million blessing directly into your life. The funds have been dispatched from the infinite, overflowing treasury of heaven, and they are arriving in your hands right now. This is not a metaphor. This is not a distant, spiritualized concept of future peace. This is a massive, tangible, overwhelming financial provision that is instantly and permanently rewriting the entire narrative of your earthly existence. I am giving you $5 million. I want you to simply sit with the breathtaking magnitude of that number for a moment. Let the absolute reality of it wash over your exhausted mind. Every single desperate prayer you wept into your pillow, every silent groan of terror you released when you checked your bank account, and every moment you begged me for a simple way out. It has all culminated in this exact, triumphant, earth-shattering moment of total deliverance. I can physically see the overwhelming shock washing over your face in this sacred moment. I feel the sudden, uncontrollable trembling in your open hands as the staggering weight of this revelation finally connects with your weary mind. I know that your breath has suddenly caught in your throat, leaving you breathless, dizzy, and suspended in a profound state of absolute disbelief. You are sitting there with hot, silent tears of shock beginning to stream down your cheeks, silently asking yourself if this can possibly be real. The enemy is whispering in your ear, desperately trying to convince you that this is just a cruel illusion, a fleeting dream that will vanish the moment you open your eyes to the morning light. But I am wrapping my arms around your trembling shoulders right now, pulling you close and gently, firmly, assuring you this is absolutely, undeniably real. It is happening to you right now, in this very second, and it is coming exclusively from my loving hand. I want you to briefly look back over your shoulder one last time at the agonizing valley you just survived so that you can fully comprehend the majestic height of the mountain you are now standing upon. Remember the excruciating days when you had to scrape together loose pennies from the bottom of your bag, praying it would be enough to buy a single loaf of bread to feed your family. Remember the hot, burning humiliation of standing at the cash register, holding your breath, while your worn-out card was declined, entirely paralyzed by the sharp, suffocating grip of financial terror. I remember every single one of those moments. I collected every tear you shed in that dark, unforgiving desert. Now look at your hands. Look at the absolute overflowing abundance I'm pouring into them. The stark, breathtaking contrast between the agonizing lack of your past and the staggering, magnificent wealth of your present is the ultimate undeniable proof of my unfailing grace and my perfect mercy. Because of this immediate massive release of $5 million, every single one of your earthly debts has been completely, permanently obliterated. I want you to vividly visualize the heavy, intimidating ledgers that have chained you to the ground for so long. The towering, terrifying mortgage that made you feel like a prisoner in your own home, canceled. The aggressive, suffocating credit card balances that multiplied faster than you could ever pay them, erased entirely. The medical bills, the past due notices, the personal loans that kept you awake until 3 in the morning, all of them are completely swept away in this mighty, rushing river of my divine provision. You owe no man anything but love. The heavy iron collar of financial slavery that has choked the life and joy out of your spirit has been violently unlocked and thrown into the depths of the sea. You are entirely free. The crushing, relentless pressure to simply survive another week is gone forever. But this staggering provision is not just about erasing the painful mistakes and terrifying deficits of your past. It is about completely radically altering the generational timeline of your entire family. The dark, heavy curse of poverty that has stalked your bloodline perhaps for decades or even generations has just struck the impenetrable iron wall of my sovereignty. The cycle of lack forcefully stops with you right here, right now. You are the specific point of magnificent intervention. With this $5 million blessing, I am establishing a legacy for your children, your grandchildren, and everyone you hold dear. You are stepping entirely out of the exhausting defensive posture of generational survival and walking boldly into a new era of unprecedented generational stability. You will be the one to fund their dreams, to secure their futures, and to ensure that they never have to taste the bitter, humiliating ashes of the poverty you so bravely endured. Feel the triumphant, earth-shattering release of all your earthly burdens physically lifting off your chest right now. The heavy, suffocating weight that has been sitting on your lungs for years is finally gone. You can take a full, deep, entirely unhindered breath of pure, radiant freedom. You are stepping fully, completely, and unapologetically into the breathtaking reality that you are now completely, undeniably free from the bondage of financial ruin. The long, terrifying storm is over. My child, the dark clouds have permanently parted, and the brilliant, warming sun of my absolute favor is shining directly, intensely upon your face. You do not have to fight the raging current anymore. You do not have to calculate. You do not have to strive, and you do not have to frantically engineer a way of escape. I have already provided the ultimate magnificent rescue, and I have placed it securely inside your beautifully open, surrendered hands. Let the sheer awe of this moment completely consume you. Do not try to rush past the shock, and do not try to immediately figure out every single logistical detail of tomorrow. Right now, in this suspended holy space, your only assignment is to fully absorb the staggering magnitude of my goodness. You are a multi-millionaire in the earthly realm. Yes. But far more importantly, you are a wildly loved, intimately seen, and fiercely protected child of the Most High God. This money is simply a physical tool, a beautiful, tangible reflection of the limitless, inexhaustible love I hold for you in my heart. I want you to look around the room you are sitting in. It may look exactly the same as it did an hour ago, but the spiritual and financial atmosphere of your entire existence has been permanently, irrevocably transformed. You are sitting in the exact same chair, but you are a completely different person, entirely unburdened, and fully equipped for the magnificent journey ahead. As the tears of disbelief continue to flow, let them deeply water the new, fertile soil of your future. You have crossed the agonizing desert. You have endured the dark waiting room, and you have officially entered the promised land of your abundance. The $5 million is yours. The peace is yours. The restored future is yours. Every single promise I whispered to you in the dark has now bloomed spectacularly in the light. I am immensely, overwhelmingly proud of you for holding on until the dawn. You did not give up, and because you stayed in the fight, you are now standing in the center of the greatest, most profound financial miracle of your entire life. But as the tremendous shock begins to gently settle, and your trembling hands finally begin to steady in the warmth of my presence, we must look at what comes next. Now that the massive physical promise has arrived, there is one final majestic step you must take to forever seal this transformation and step into your glorious, abundant tomorrow. That final, majestic step, my beautiful child, is the absolute total surrender of your exhausted heart into pure, unadulterated worship. I want you to take all of the overwhelming shock, all of the breathless awe, and all of the staggering disbelief you are feeling right now, and gently lay it down directly at my feet. You have spent so many agonizing years kneeling in this exact same spot, crying out to me in the bitter, suffocating anguish of your crushing lack. You have stained the floor with tears of pure desperation, pleading for a miraculous rescue that always felt like it would never actually arrive. But tonight, the atmosphere of this room has been completely, permanently revolutionized. You are no longer kneeling as a broken, terrified captive, begging for a meager scrap of daily survival. You are kneeling as a fully liberated, magnificently restored heir to the kingdom of heaven, completely overwhelmed by the breathtaking generosity of your Father. Let the tears of sharp pain finally transition into the sweet, purifying tears of absolute, majestic victory. Let the heavy, broken sighs of your chronic exhaustion be permanently replaced by a deep, soaring song of profound, tearful gratitude. I am inviting you to completely lose yourself in the radiant, majestic warmth of my presence, allowing the profound reality of my endless mercy to wash over every single fiber of your being. As you lift your newly emptied hands toward heaven, I want you to see this massive $5 million blessing for what it truly is in my eternal perspective. Human nature will violently tempt you to view this staggering provision as the final triumphant finish line of your long, grueling journey. The cynical world will try to convince you that because the physical money has finally arrived, you can safely pack up your faith retreat into your newly secured fortress of comfortable isolation and simply coast through the rest of your earthly life without ever needing me again. But I am speaking a far greater, far more beautiful truth into your spirit right now. This overflowing, mind-altering abundance is absolutely not an end. It is a magnificent, breathtaking new beginning. It is the brilliant, blinding dawn of an entirely new era of walking intimately, powerfully, and purposefully by my side. You are not retiring from the spiritual battlefield. You have simply been heavily promoted, fully funded, and perfectly equipped to step into a much grander, infinitely more impactful assignment. I am permanently, officially reinforcing your entirely new identity in the supreme courts of heaven and in the physical reality of your daily life. You must never again look in the mirror and see a helpless, forgotten victim of poverty. That old, broken, terrified version of you officially died in the waiting room. The person who constantly cowered in fear of the approaching mail carrier, the person who endlessly calculated the impossible mathematics of starvation, the person who felt fundamentally flawed and completely overlooked by the universe, that person is gone forever. When I look at you right now, I see a fiercely trusted, divinely empowered, deeply compassionate steward of my eternal kingdom. I see a beautiful, incredibly resilient warrior who successfully endured the scorching fires of the wilderness without ever permanently letting go of my unseen hand. I am officially placing the heavy, glorious mantle of divine stewardship upon your weary shoulders, knowing with absolute, unwavering certainty that your heart has been perfectly forged to carry it. You know exactly how the crushing, humiliating weight of poverty feels, which means you are now perfectly, uniquely positioned to lift that exact same terrifying weight off the shoulders of the broken people I will intentionally place in your path. This sudden, massive wealth is the physical tool I am actively giving you to completely change the broken world around you. You will walk into desperate rooms carrying the triumphant atmosphere of heaven, equipped with the tangible overflowing resources to instantly alter the tragic trajectory of a desperate family's life. But to do this safely, to wield this staggering amount of money with pure, uncorrupted wisdom and flawless grace, you must make a profound, lifelong vow to me right now, in the quiet, sacred stillness of this holy encounter. I am giving you a powerful, crucial invitation, and it is the single most important instruction you will ever receive regarding your new, abundant reality. You must never, ever let the blessing replace the blesser. When your earthly bank accounts are overflowing, when your terrifying debts are entirely erased, and when every single physical need is effortlessly met before you even ask, the dangerous, subtle temptation will be to slowly, quietly drift away from the intense, desperate intimacy we shared in the dark valley. Do not let the sudden, overwhelming comfort of your new life cool the blazing, passionate fire of your devotion to me. Let the $5 million be a constant, daily, beautiful reminder of my unfailing goodness, not a golden idol that gradually distracts your heart from seeking my face. I want you to need me tomorrow, when your pockets are completely full, exactly as desperately and authentically as you needed me yesterday, when they were completely, devastatingly empty. If you keep your spirit permanently anchored in the deep waters of my presence, the staggering abundance of this temporary world will never have the power to corrupt the beautiful, hard-won purity of your soul. You will be absolutely able to manage this massive financial empire with the gentle, quiet humility of a servant and the fierce, unwavering confidence of a king. Every single time you write a check to silently bless a struggling single mother, every time you quietly pay the mounting medical bills for a terrified family, and every time you look at the absolute, unshakable security of your own children, I want you to look up and lock eyes with me. I want our relationship to grow infinitely deeper, richer, and more profoundly beautiful in the radiant, easy light of the mountaintop than it ever was in the desperate, terrifying shadows of the valley. The wealth is merely a temporary earthly tool. I am your eternal, unchanging, all-satisfying reward. So, my beloved child, just breathe. Take a long, slow, incredibly deep breath of this wonderfully fresh, completely unburdened air. The agonizing daily fight for your mere survival is permanently officially over. The brutal, exhausting, tear-stained war against your mounting debt has been completely, decisively won. The $5 million has been released. The heavenly transaction is fully finished, and your entire generational timeline has been beautifully, permanently rewritten by my sovereign loving hand. As the intense, overwhelming shock of this staggering revelation begins to slowly settle into a deep, quiet, undeniable reality, I am wrapping you completely in a heavy blanket of complete, radiant, unshakable peace. It is a peace that absolutely surpasses all human understanding, a divine, majestic tranquility that permanently guards your heart and your mind against any lingering whispers of doubt. You are fully, entirely prepared for this breathtaking new reality. The long, painful, excruciating preparation in the shadows has produced a magnificent masterpiece of faith within your chest. You are stepping into tomorrow, not with the frantic, terrified energy of someone who is desperately trying to escape the ghosts of their past, but with the calm, joyful expectation of a fiercely trusted heir, stepping confidently into their rightful royal inheritance. I am so incredibly, overwhelmingly proud of you. I have loved you with a fierce, everlasting love through every single tear, every single perceived failure, and every single moment of your profound, bone-weary exhaustion. The night has officially, permanently ended. The golden sun has finally crested the horizon, and the brilliant, blinding morning of your absolute deliverance has completely arrived. Now simply rest in me. Let the heavy, tired muscles of your physical body completely relax into the absolute certainty of my eternal goodness. Trust that my timing in your life was flawlessly perfect, that my mercy is truly endless, and that the magnificent, sweeping plans I have for your future are far greater than your human mind could ever possibly comprehend. You are completely safe. You are fully funded for the mission ahead. You are deeply, unconditionally, and eternally loved. Lord, I ask that your magnificent peace would seal this listener's heart right now, forever guarding their mind as they step into this staggering promise. May they walk forward into the magnificent, overflowing abundance of their new life, holding my hand tightly, and watch with absolute awe as we completely change the world together. Amen.